You cannot serve, love, chase after, worship, give your life to the pursuit of God and wealth. And here, Jesus is not talking about budgeting. He's talking about worship, because everything we do is worship. Why is it so hard to get money right? Why is it so hard to get our attitude toward money right? We want to do things right. We want to use money responsibly and honor God. Like, I don't think anybody's like, my goal in life is to waste as much money as possible. Like, none of us are that way. So why do so many of us get it wrong then? Why do we find ourselves in difficult financial situations? And the reason is because when it comes to money, so many of us try to approach change the wrong way. There are 3 levels of behavioral change. And so we've got this image here. There's 3 levels of behavior change: do, how, and who. The first one, the top one, there is what we do, which are the results we want, the results that we want. There's how we're going to go about the change. So that's the second one, how we're going to go about the change, and our systems and habits that we put in place. And then there's who we are, our identity. Now, when we want to change, when we want a change in our life, especially a change financially, but also with health or a relationship, we start with do most of the time. We'll say like, man, I'm just going to make more money. I need more money. So if I make more money and have more money, then that's going to solve everything, right? The problem is I don't have enough money, so I'm going to make more money. So that's the do. And I hope that for all of you at some point in your life, I hope that you realize that making more money is not going to solve the issues on this topic. Unless you're below the poverty line. If you're below the poverty line, making more money will improve your life. But if you're above the poverty line, more money is not the answer to the solution or to the problem. Making more money will probably cause more tension, not less, more stress, more anxiety, more problems if we don't have everything else lined up. So then what do we do then? So we focus deeper. So we go to the how. We would then say, well, okay, so I need a budget. I'll download an app that tracks my expenses. I'll start a get out of debt snowball plan or whatever. I'll save some money, whatever that looks like. And most of the financial products that you see out in the world on the market these days are all focused on the how. And most things focus on the how. And it's incredibly important to pay attention to those things. Yes, budgeting, get out of debt, saving. But the thing is, they will never transform your life financially, ever. Why? The reason is because your identity drives your behavior. And so you have to focus on the who before you're going to see success in the how and the do. If your identity isn't right, then you're going to fall apart with the budgeting and the making more money. Like, those things won't solve the problem if your identity isn't correct. And guess what? That's where Jesus starts as well, is on the identity. So check this out. In the opening pages of the New Testament, Jesus is coming onto the public scene. He's preaching for the first time. He's given the Sermon on the Mount, the very famous sermon. And so what does he decide to hit on during the Sermon on the Mount? He decides to hit on our identity with finances. So what Jesus is going to explain to us is basically this idea that there will always be 2 competing identities vying for your heart. There's always 2 things that will compete and try to capture your hearts and drive your behavior. And one identity will lead to financial peace and just overall general peace in your life. And one identity will lead to financial stress and bondage for the rest of your life. So listen to what Jesus has to say about this. So in Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, Jesus says, "No one can serve 2 masters." Not a single person. You can't be like, well, that doesn't apply to me. No, Jesus means it when he says no one can. There's no exception rule there. Well, why is that, Jesus? Why can no one serve 2 masters? And so Jesus continues saying, either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be loyal to the one and have contempt for the other. And then, just to make sure we're not missing, Jesus is talking about finances here. So imagine Jesus pauses after saying that, and then he says, you cannot serve both God and wealth. These are the words of Jesus. Now, this is incredibly significant because this is the only place in the entire New Testament that Jesus says, you can't serve me and something else. So Jesus is being very intentional saying this. You cannot serve God and wealth. Now, quick note, Jesus technically doesn't say wealth or money there. The word actually he uses in the original language is the word mammon. You can't serve God and mammon. Now, what is mammon? We don't use that word these days. That was a word for wealth that had taken on a kind of godlike status, like if you were to personify wealth. So it's wealth as a master, wealth as an identity, wealth as something that you serve. If you just Google mammon, you'll see that actually in pop culture and even video games and stuff, there is this kind of this creature that society has created that goes by the name of mammon. It looks pretty demonic, and that it's not even a Christian thing. Like there's this recognition that wealth can take on this identity, and wealth can become a master for us. And so the reality is money and even wealth are not inherently bad. Okay, we're not saying money is bad, so avoid it. No, you can do really great things with money. You can do good things with money, and you can do bad things with money. So it's not inherently bad, but I think we all have felt that gravitational pull that money has on us, right? Money can go from a tool to a lord if we aren't careful. It can pull us in a certain direction. And so this is why in 1 Timothy, Paul writes saying, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some have wandered away from the faith and have impaled themselves with a lot of pain. Why? Because they made money their goal. So it's important to make sure we're not misreading this here. It's not saying money is the root of all kinds of evil. It's the love of money. And why is the love of money the root of all kinds of evil? Well, what is the greatest commandment? To love God with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so Jesus is saying, you can't have two first loves. You can't love God and money. It's like, try having two spouses. How is that going to work out? You're not going to be able to satisfy them both. You're not going to be able to balance them and give them both your everything. It just doesn't work. So Jesus says either you'll hate one and love the other, or you'll be loyal to one and have contempt for the other. You cannot serve, love, chase after, worship, give your life to the pursuit of God and wealth. And here, Jesus is not talking about budgeting. He's talking about worship. Because everything we do is worship.